Hallelujah. Game 82 is in the books. The 2025-26 season is finally over, but not before the young guys put on one last show. And of course, Doug Christie got a big time reprieve. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I am James Hammer, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320, the Kings Beat, and of course, host of Locked On Kings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. We have got a busy show. Game 82 is in the books. We're going to discuss that, all the highs and lows of Game 82, but not only Game 82, but the other 81 games. Also, we got 6 quick thoughts. We'll finish up with 6 quick thoughts like we normally do. But before we get into any of that, Doug Christie got a second season. According to league sources, Doug Christie will return next season to coach the Kings despite a 22-60 season in his first official season as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. Our friend Sam Amick from The Athletic was first with the news this morning, but multiple sources have confirmed that it is happening. So first up, on a personal note, I've known Doug Christie a long time. We used to have a podcast together for 3 years. We used to drive to San Francisco for tons of games every year to be on the broadcast together with NBC Sports Bay Area. This is a really, really good man. And I know there are a lot of fans out there that are disappointed about the season that just happened and what just unfolded. But I want to make sure that people understand this like straight up. There is no one that loves the Sacramento Kings franchise more than Doug Christie. There is no one that wants to succeed in this job more than Doug Christie. There are coaches that have come in here that want to win. And there are coaches that come in here that are getting their first experience or getting back in the league or whatever. But this is the only one that I've covered in my 16 seasons that played here and that wants to be here so bad and wants to deliver something for this franchise and for this fan base. And that's what this is all about. For Doug, I know this personally. The thing he wants more than anything in the world is for the Sacramento Kings to raise a banner, for them to win an NBA championship, and for him to be part of that winning an NBA championship. He feels like he has unfinished business from his time as a player. It's very apparent. And I know that there are a lot of fans out there that say, hey, maybe he just doesn't have the chops for coaching. And it's possible. Like, look, the records, it is what it is. 22-60 is not good. His record last season was much better when he took over the final 51 games and finished 27-24. You're kind of wondering what happened in between, but look, this season was bad. It got off to a bad start when injuries hit coming out of training camp. The Kings had one of the most brutal first 19 games on the schedule. And then by February, when the trade deadline came around, this thing was already over. They made some moves to, move off of Dennis Schroeder to trade Keon Ellis. They bring in DeAndre Hunter. The first thing that happens is he gets poked in the eye and he's out for the rest of the season. So I think this season is going to be known for a couple of things. First and foremost, it's going to be known as a season that was extremely disappointing. This team won 40 games last year. They went from 48 to 46 to 40 in the span of 3 seasons, and now all the way down to 22. An 18-game deficit over last season's disappointing season, to be honest with you, is not acceptable. But I think we can all look at this roster and say, look, the roster was broken from the beginning. And some of the downfalls here with Doug Christie, he wasn't able to adapt. He wasn't, like, his team was not able to get better at some of the basics that they were lacking. Some of that is because the roster was wrong and incorrectly put together, and not by Scott Perry so much as it was, the residuals of being a good team. And then what happens next, where a lot of teams, historically try to hang on to the past by doing death by mid-level exception. And that's exactly what the Dennis Schroeder signing was. It was just bringing someone in to try to be a stopgap, to try to keep the thing going. And it didn't work. But some of the things that I'll point to that for this season, number one, Doug has a ton of work to do moving forward. The team ranked 26th in offensive rating. That's not okay. The defense was 28th. That's even worse. Neither of those are good signs for this team. Not only that, but watching the team once again for one last time, in case you needed a reminder, watching the Kings not defend the 3-point line again tonight, again, and their loss to Portland, just unacceptable. Just absolutely unacceptable. So that's going to have to be something that the Kings work on during this offseason. They also were 30th in 3-point attempts and 30th in 3-point percentage. That's not good enough. And again, I can point to some of the players that missed huge amounts of time this season, whether it's Keegan Murray or Zach LaVine, or the fact that they traded Keon Ellis. You can just keep going down the line. There was a lot of players who shoot 3-point shots that were missing from this roster, but either way, probably not enough to make up for the deficit. So that's going to be something that has to be focused on this summer, is 3-point defense, 3-point shooting, creating open looks for players, getting players confidence they need to shoot those threes. That's going to be on Doug's plate. But look, this was a train wreck of a season, and this is why I believe Doug Christie was back. Like, first of all, he doesn't make very much money. So to give him another shot to coach next season at roughly $2 million a year, according to, again, our friend Sam Amick, that's a very, very minor expense for an NBA team. But they're going to have to figure this thing out, and they're going to have to improve. The reason, though, I do think that he'll be back is because while this thing was out of control and it was a train wreck and all that stuff, you could see that the young players were developing. They were developing the entire season. And not only that, but he didn't lose the room. So when you're my sort of the litmus test for me, who's covered 10 head coaches in 16 seasons, is when a coach loses a room, it's time to go. But then we got to this last week, and some of the discussion to players, especially the young players, was about, hey, what do you think about Doug Christie, the job that Doug Christie's done for this season? And to a man, it was overwhelmingly positive. Neat Clifford saying, look, he kept us, together. And despite the losing and the frustrations, it was like, this guy he was positive every day. And we all felt like it was fun coming to work. Even if we lost, we shook it off and went on to the next day. You listen to Max Reynaud, who talks about, Doug's ability as a player, as a former player, and how that connects with players, especially young players. He knows what they've been through. So he's not going to ask you to do something he hasn't done himself. And then you get to Dylan Cardwell, and you listen to Dylan talk about, we played it on the podcast last week. He talks about how, no one has ever given him this type of grace to go out there and to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes and to get better and to be part of something and to get the direction that he needed to go from a player who realistically should not have made it to the NBA, judging off his 5 years in college, to a player who looks like he has a very bright future in the NBA and is getting compared favorably to Ben Wallace, a Hall of Famer. So look, I think there's a lot of positives here. And to listen to Doug on his last press conference going into the summer, we'll get him this week for an exit interview. But a couple of the quotes that I pulled, let's see, they're listening, they're trying, and they're trusting not only me, but themselves and each other. That's Doug Christie in a nutshell right there. He also said it's a big summer for us, for me individually, for them as players individually and collectively, and for us overall as an organization. He also said very, very, plainly, I have to improve. And so that's the positives. Look, the Kings are in a tough spot. They have a ton of work to do over the next 6 months. The roster is still damaged. They need more talent. There's no question about that. He needs to adjust his coaching staff and probably his style of coaching if they hope to get better. But again, I want to make sure I reiterate this. Nobody wants to win in Sacramento more than Doug Christie. He is so incredibly intense about this specific thing. It's the reason why he punched Rick Fox years ago. He just wants to win and deliver for this city. And that's a really good starting point. So again, he needs to improve. He needs more talent. We all need to improve on what we do. But it is what it is. Doug Christie will be back for year 2 with the Sacramento Kings. And personally, I'm excited to see him grow and to see what exactly he's able to bring to the table next year. And hopefully it works out. And, there's still an opportunity here for him to be a long-term coach here in Sacramento. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, let's talk about perspective and how we all somehow survived this season. 82 games are in the book. Let's talk about it. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so easy. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Pull up the Gametime app. Pick an upcoming NBA game. All we got left is playoffs at this point. But you can have the tickets locked in within minutes. Not only that, but you get to see the upfront pricing. There is no surprise at the end when you go to check out and all of a sudden they've jumped your ticket prices by $40 a piece. So being able to see your view from your seats is cool. You can load up the app, look right at the seats that you're purchasing before you purchase them. That's amazing. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That code is LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. And remember, it's gametime.code, not .com. All right. Locked On Kings is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. If you never miss an episode of Locked On Kings, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Click the link in the description or go to lockedonkings.supercast.com for more information. All right. This was a unique season for me personally. Yeah, it was rough. The losses were brutal, especially after having, the playoffs just 3 years ago after, a 16-year playoff drought. And you kind of felt like things were building. I also had a weird job change in the middle of the year, which has me here on Locked On Kings. I hope you're enjoying. But by the time this was all said and done, I did feel like this became just like every other Kings season I covered, especially the first 12 seasons, where, wins and losses in the second half of the season may not have been so much of a focus. Developing young players, having young players to develop, getting the most out of the young players that you are developing. That became kind of what this season was about. And look, I know maybe here in the last 3 months since I took over Locked On Kings, we've had too many podcasts about Maxime Reynaud. But I got to be honest, it's because Maxime Reynaud is really good. He is. He's a very good young player. He averaged, over 12 points. He averaged 7.5 rebounds. He should be a first-team all-rookie selection. And if he's not, he'll be a second-team all-rookie selection. So that became one of the things that we focused on. And I felt like this kept snowballing. I think he has an ability to be someone special, and we'll see how it turns out. But the first showing that we just saw was pretty amazing. I also, when we walked into the season and we started seeing Nick Clifford get rotational minutes right away, it was intriguing. And then he just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a player. And what I mean by that is it wasn't just he started out as this shy kid trying to fit in. And by the time we got to the end of the season, I feel like he's one of the better players on the team. Again, back-to-back 20-point performances. You can say they're meaningless games and all that stuff, but 3 of the last 4 games, 20 points. It's the way he's carrying himself as a player. It's the fact that his 3-point percentage skyrocketed in the second half of the season, that he became more comfortable as a ball handler, that he became more comfortable as a creator for himself and for others. He figured out how to do this fall away, clear space for himself. And the spin move he had against the Blazers was absolutely incredible. So again, I think we started to focus on these little finer nuances of the game with the young players. And we got such a huge sample size because normally you don't get that kind of sample size for young players, especially on a team that walked in with a $180 million, $188 million payroll, whatever it was, a bunch of veterans. But because of the injuries and because of the way the season played out, it became more and more and more about the young players. And I just keep watching and seeing more and more development. And I think it's cool to ask the question, is Dylan Cardwell for real? Can you really find a guy as an undrafted free agent who goes from a 5-year college player who's 24 years old, averaging 5 points and 5 rebounds a game, and in his rookie season with the Kings, he averages 5 points and 8 rebounds, or almost 8 rebounds and a couple of blocks. And you look at his per 36 numbers and you're like, what in the world? Averaging almost 14 rebounds per game, almost like 2.7 blocks per game. And so that became this interesting thing that we're watching play out. And then we're watching the joy that he plays with. We're watching him come up with new celebrations and new ways to get the fans involved. And some of it was crazy. And some of it you're like, man, I don't know that you should be doing that right now in the middle of the game. But it became fun and became something that I think we're all looking forward to watching. Then, like, look, I think we got to see Devin Carter reinvent himself, and he struggled. He struggled not just to get on the court after the shoulder injury, coming into his rookie season, but then just to fit. He doesn't seem like a person who walks into every room and figures out how to be part of the group. And to watch him by the end of the season slowly start to figure this out and start to use the skills that he has. He's long, he's athletic, he's got incredible speed and quickness, change of direction is nuts. Again, great rebounder, great defensive acumen. Like, these are things that you're hoping to see him develop, but also you're seeing him start to fit in. And to me, that became a really, really interesting, quiet storyline that's happening during this season. And, again, we can talk about like Precious Achua having this incredible breakout season as a guy who, again, in November, he was a free agent and the Kings signed him up, a couple of games into the season, a couple of weeks into the season. He just became so good. Like, as we're watching him perform, he starts showing, his 3-point shot. Then all of a sudden he's taking people off the dribble. Then all of a sudden he's grabbing rebounds and leading the break. And all of a sudden he's guarding 5 positions on the floor. And you're starting to think, what would he look like if he got to play with Keegan Murray? What would he look like if he got to play with Domantas Sabonis? What would he look like if he's starting and playing huge minutes next season? And again, there's going to be a lot of question marks as to whether the Kings can retain him. But again, it's one of the storylines that I think developed during the season that we had no idea would be part of the conversation or part of the postmortem of the Sacramento Kings team. Look, I think Daquan Plowden showed us that he's more than just a 4A player. He can play. He should be on an NBA roster. He should be on the Kings roster next season as a very affordable asset. And then, on top of that, I love seeing Killian Hayes get some minutes. I want to see if Killian Hayes can play basketball. I really hope that he learns, that he works on his 3-point shot. He's going to be in Sacramento a ton this summer. I talked to him the other day. He's going to be here a ton. I like Patrick Baldwin as a player. I want to see if Patrick Baldwin can develop. 23 years old, has a length and athleticism, length and like skill set that might translate. He's just been a monster in the G League. But also on top of that, the fun that this young group played with, the Beam Boys, that was fun. Them wearing sunglasses out to light the beam, that was cool. And so I do think that while, again, the season did drag on, it had these moments and these things that you started to look forward to. And I do, shout out to Kings fans who showed up in force to most Kings games, to sell out a game, even if it was against the Golden State Warriors on the last game of the season, was crazy. And then before I move on to 6 quick thoughts, I also want to say, like, DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook, having them on the roster, it added this other element that until the young players got to a point where they could actually hold their own and actually play basketball at a reasonable level, we got to see some of the 2 greats of the game. And, this season alone, DeMar DeRozan moved from number 25 to number 16 on the all-time scoring list. I went back and I looked this up. He passed this season Alex English, Vince Carter, Kevin Garnett, John Havlicek, Paul Pierce, Tim Duncan, Steph Curry, Dominique Wilkins, and Oscar Robertson. I mean, that is truly incredible to watch a player move up like that on the list. And again, I don't disrespect DeMar DeRozan and his accomplishments for his career. I think there's a guy out there that learned that this week. Also, watching Russell Westbrook again. I never been like a huge fan of some of Russell Westbrook's stuff. And also, we learned this season, again, what it's like to cover him as a media, which can be fun and then all of a sudden not very fun. But he moved all the way up to number 14 on the all-time scoring list this season. He also moved up to number 5 on the all-time assist list. He broke 2,000 steals. He became the all-time leading rebounder for a guard. And he also picked up 6 more triple-doubles to push his total to 209 for his career. Like, those are amazing accomplishments to get to see in a season. And I know you just say, hey, they're just putting up stats on a bad team, but they've been doing it for 17 and 18 years. The fact that they can still put up stats, that they're still in the league is really, really remarkable. So look, this wasn't a great season, but I do think that there was a ton of positives and a ton of talking points to get us through the season. So I appreciate the team for at least creating enough that we had something to talk about. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we have one final edition of 6 quick thoughts. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can just bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel. Play your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a giant stack of papers, not great. Emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. All right. It's time to get a little sad. It's the final edition of 6 quick thoughts. You of course can find 6 quick thoughts on Twitter in written form, on Blue Sky in written form. Just go to @James_Ham NBA if you want to check it out. Also, give me a follow, whatever. It's finally over. The Sacramento Kings finish off the 2025-26 season like so many other games this season. They battled, but in the end, they came up short. This is the way it worked for this team this season. They did lose 122 to 108, 110, not 108, to end the season at 22-60. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of 6 quick thoughts. Number 1, aggressive. Nate Clifford went to work. I really, really like the way he's getting to his spots. I love hearing Doug Christie talk about Nate Clifford and him having a conversation with DeMar DeRozan, and DeMar DeRozan teaching Nate Clifford how to get to his spots on the floor, how to run at his own pace, how to move about in a way that's going to get you fouls, that's going to get you easy looks. And I think we're starting to see that sort of materialize. He was super efficient in this game, going 10 of 13 from the field. He had 24 points. He had 7 rebounds. He had 5 assists. I didn't like the turnover issue earlier. He had 4 turnovers. He's got to tighten up his handles during the offseason. But he also had a block. And to be honest with you, kind of surprising. The Kings had 8 blocks as a team. That's not one of their fortes at all. So really good game for Nate Clifford. Okay, let's get to number 2, which is a trebuchet. I don't know if anyone out there knows what a trebuchet is. But it's kind of like a catapult, except for it's taller and can fling rocks further using physics. It's a war device from, I don't know, medieval ages, I believe, especially to break up the walls of castles where you could fling giant stones. If you ever watched any of the Lord of the Rings or uh, the Hobbit series, I'm sure you've seen the trebuchet. I bring this up because that's what Max Reynaud looked like tonight, a giant French trebuchet. Uh, he's shown us so many things in his rookie season, but I think we get to the final game and you get to see a little bit more. He goes 3 of 4 from 3, and what they were doing is they're dragging Klingon away from the basket. They were trying to free up the middle of the key so other players could go score, and it really put the Blazers in a weird spot early on. Again, Max Reynaud, he did not get his 19th double-double of the season. He did go for 21 points and 9 rebounds. And look, I cannot wait for Max 2.0. I think we're going to see such incredible development from this kid. Not only is he a very good basketball player, but he has this moldable body and the intelligence to go with it. And that's where I think the Kings are really this summer. They're going to work really hard on developing him and bringing him along the right way. All right, let's get to number 3, which is lead them wanting more. Precious Achiuwa finished off his season with a bang in Sacramento. For Sacramento. He's 26 years old. He'll be a free agent, and he would like to return. I don't know if the Kings can afford him. The Kings are going to have to do some drastic salary cap shaving, and I don't know how they're going to do it outside of potentially, buying out and stretch provisioning Zach LaVine. They're in for a long summer of what do we do next? Because that's just kind of the way where they're at as an older team that's making this transition to a younger team, but has, long-term or even short-term, but really expensive contracts. So what Precious did tonight is he just gave you one more thing to remember him by. He had 27 points. He had 11 rebounds. He actually had, I think, 4 assists. He had 2 blocks. Like, he was all over the court, and we're seeing him grow as a player, and it's really fun to watch. Let's get to number 4, which is dealing. Devin Carter looked to get out and run the entire game, and he was really pushing the tempo, whether it was off a rebound or as like a leak out. And I thought it was really interesting how unselfish he played. He's not a natural point guard, but he scored 8 points and he had a career high 8 assists in this game. He also had 6 rebounds. Like, there is another step that he can take, another 2 or 3 steps he can take. And I don't know where he fits into this thing long term. But I definitely think that over the last month, maybe 6 weeks, he's shown more and more of who he can be as a player, and then he actually probably belongs in the league. And I'm not sure that we all felt that way, through the first 40 games of the season or last season. So hopefully Devin Carter figures it all out and continues to improve. But I think he's taken some major steps forward, which is a cool thing. Let's get to number 5, which is the punch list. Every single player, especially the young guys, are going to have a punch list for this summer. And it's kind of a tough one for Dylan Cardwell because the thing that he needs to do is a ton of film study. He needs to watch, I don't know, Dennis Rodman. He could watch Ben Wallace. He can watch a bunch of like super athletic big men who just play defense and rebound and get an occasional alley-oop dunk, right? But the thing that he really needs to figure out and improve on is how to not foul people and how to be, I don't know, like very smart about his fouls. He picks up an extra 2 or 3 just silly fouls every single game. And it really does remind me of young Jason Thompson. Jason Thompson did this all the time where you're just like, man, you're sitting there at 4 fouls in the third quarter and you're limiting yourself. You're not going to get to play very much because you can't stay on the court. And again, I think he did a fine job tonight. He had 6 points. He had 8 rebounds. He had a couple of blocks too. But he's got to figure out how to avoid the cheap ones. And that means he probably needs to play a ton of 5-on-5 this summer. And that's not easy to do. So game footage, 5-on-5. he needs to figure out how to not foul people. On top of that, the Kings are going to work on him with maybe a baby jump hook. He'll work with Max Rhino a bunch. He'll work with Killian Hayes and Devin Carter and Nick Clifford. Like, that group of young players are probably going to spend a lot of time together, and an additional player who they get in the top, 1 to 7 or 8 in the draft, whoever that player is. And then, of course, the Kings have 2 second-round picks as well. Those guys are going to play a lot of basketball this summer with guys like Dylan Cardwell. Okay, let's get to number 6, which, of course, the news broke early on Sunday that Doug Christie will return for another season, despite the 22-60 record on the year. Look, they stayed together despite the injuries, the ineffective play, and the losses. The rookies developed. They seem to have a great time, even though they had way too many losses. They need more talent ASAP. Doug has to improve as a coach. He knows that. But at the end of the day, this was a big day for Doug Christie and his family to know that he's going to be here coaching this team next year. All right. So this week, I'm just going to lay it out for you. On Monday, we're going to get exit interviews with players starting very early. So if you're up and about and want to start following on social media, go to at James_Ham NBA on Twitter. That's where I'll be posting player videos, like one after another. I think we have Russell Westbrook starting first, and it'll probably be like early in the morning. We're also going to get Scott Perry on Wednesday, so look forward to that as well. We'll have all kinds of things to digest Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week as we move into the off season. But hey, look, I fully appreciate everybody joining us here on this journey. It's been a very interesting season for me, switching gears and really focusing on Locked On. But hey, I'm here for it. I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait to break down, do the postmortem on the season, start working on, grading players for the season, but then also start diving into draft prospects and really give you a whole lot of information leading up to the May 10th NBA draft lottery, but also the NBA draft, which I believe is June 25th and 26th. Where the Kings should actually have a couple of players coming this way. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we'll be back tomorrow. And if you never miss an episode of Locked On Kings, the Everydayers Club is built for you. Get Locked On Kings ad-free, plus members only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonkings.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On the audio side, make sure to make your second listen of the day our NBA game night on Locked On Kings. Thanks for tuning in. Season's over. See you tomorrow. Wrong button.